All right, guys, so this is Mrs. Waller, and this is Math 1050. This is your first lesson for this class. It's section 1.6. While you're watching it, make sure you write in your workbook and take notes, because at the end of each unit, I'm going to have you scan those in and turn them in as an assignment, okay? I only have enough room on my laptop for 30 minutes of recording, and it's about a 30-minute lesson, so I'm going to get started. Make sure that whatever I write down, you write down, okay? Make sure you pay attention, and here we go. Email me if you have any questions, okay? Okay, so the first thing is absolute value. So the definition of absolute value is how far a number is away from zero on the number line, okay? You're never going to be asked, what is the definition of absolute value? You know, repeat after me, or fill it in. You're never going to be asked to do that. But I think if you remember the definition of absolute value, then it's going to help you to do these problems correctly. So absolute value of x equals 3. So there's two different ways to think about it, right? Here's one way. What could I put inside of there to make that true? Well, I could put a 3, because the absolute value of 3 is a 3. What else could I put in there? Well, I could put a negative 3, because the absolute value of negative 3 is 3. So I know that you guys know right now that the solutions are 3 and negative 3. But I want to show you on the number line why, because I think if you understand this, it's going to help you, okay? So put a 0 in the center, and go to the right and get to a 3, and go to the left and get it to a negative 3. And then just put a dot on each of those. And this distance right here is 3. And this distance right here is 3. So the two numbers on the number line that are exactly 3 units away from 0 are 3 and negative 3. Okay? Now we're going to start solving some equations. So I'm going to give you some steps. Okay? So step number 1 is to get the absolute value alone. Okay? Step number 2 is to split it and drop the absolute value. And then step number 3 is to just solve, okay? So if you look at example 1a, the absolute value is already alone. It's the only thing on the left side of the equal sign. So step 1 is done. So step number 2, you're going to split it. So look, if you didn't think about the x minus 3, what could go inside of there to make it true? Well, it would be 4 or negative 4. So whatever's inside of there, x minus 3, could be 4, or x minus 3 could be negative 4. Notice I don't have any more absolute values, right? Whatever's inside of there could be 4 or negative 4. And then you just solve it. So the 3 comes over and becomes a positive, and you get a 7. And this one right here, the 3 comes over and becomes a positive, and you get a negative 1. So I asked you to get a yellow highlighter, and what I want you to do is to highlight your answers when you're done, okay? Okay, question B. The absolute value is not alone because that 2 is there. So step 1 is to pull the 2 over. So you have the absolute value of 3 minus x is 7 minus 2, which is 5. Now your absolute value is alone, so now you split it in 2 and you drop it. So the 3 minus x could be 5, or the 3 minus x could be negative 5. And then you solve it. So the one on the left, sorry, I'm going to set a timer for like 25 minutes because I don't want to run out of time. The one that's on the left, pull your 3 over, it becomes a negative. So you have negative x equals 2. To get rid of that negative, you just change both the signs, and you get x equals negative 2. Do this one, bring the 3 over, it becomes a negative, negative x equals negative 8. Change both the signs, you get x equals 8, and you're done, okay? Now, we have to be careful how we write things in here, in this class. So you could write it like that. You could also write it as x equals negative 2, comma, positive 8. Either one of those is fine, okay? Question C, step 1, get the absolute value alone. It already is. There's nothing over there. Step number 2, split it in 2. So x squared minus 25 equals 0. Or, now normally we'd say x squared minus 25 equals negative 0, but that doesn't make sense. So there's actually only one equation. Okay, there's a couple of ways to solve this. So I'm just going to pull that 25 over, and then I'm going to square root it, and you get x equals. When you're the one that takes the square root when you're solving, you have to include the positive and the negative with it. The square root of 25 is 5, and that's your answer. So you actually have two answers, positive 5 and negative 5. Okay. Question D, the absolute value is already alone. So you're going to split it in 2. So you have 2x plus 1 equals 3x plus, or pardon me, over 3x plus 4 equals 1, or 2x plus 1 over 3x plus 4 equals negative 1. So what I really want you to do on this, you guys, is cross multiply. So if you look across from the 2x plus 1, you have a 1. So 2x plus 1 times 1 is 2x plus 1. 3x plus 4 times 1 is 3x plus 4. So get in the habit of doing that. You'll do it a lot in this class, okay? So take this 3x, pull it over to the left, it becomes a negative. So a negative 3x and a positive 2x is a negative 1x. I'm also going to take the 1 and pull it over to the other side, and it becomes a negative. So positive 4 and a negative 1 is a positive 3. And then you change both the signs and you get x equals negative 3. Let's do the same thing over here. So you put a 1 underneath. Now, the negative, always just push that negative up with the top. So just so you guys understand, negative 1 over 1. 1 over 1 with the negative in front of it. And 1 over negative 1, they're all the same. But for sure, the best thing to do is always this. So pull the negative up with the top, okay? So 2x plus 1 times 1 is 2x plus 1. Cross multiply the other way, distribute the negative, and you get negative 3x minus 4. Pull the negative 3x over to the left and it becomes a positive. So you have 5x equals, pull the 1 over to the other side, it becomes a negative, and you get negative 5. Then divide by 5, and you get x equals negative 1. Take your yellow highlighter, and you're done. Question E, the absolute value of x minus 3 equals negative 5. Well, your absolute value is alone, but an absolute value always has to be a positive number. So it's never going to work out. An absolute value cannot be a negative. So you literally don't have to do anything. You just write the words no solution, highlight it, and that's all you have to do. No work for that problem, okay? Okay, question 2. Okay, so Weber State often asks you, like, what is the correct first step? And for this problem, it's so sweet because it's just super simple. So the absolute value is not alone. So you're just going to move that 2 over to the right, and you'd have the absolute value of x plus 5 is equal to 8, and that's literally your answer. That's all you have to do. It would be multiple choice, okay? So this next little part right here, this U means or, and an upside down U means and. That came up one time on a midterm or a final that we wrote, and so I just stuck it in there. Just remember it for now, and then, when it comes up, we'll discuss it further, okay? All right, so absolute value inequalities. So people really struggle with these. You may have learned to do it a different way. I would really love it if you would conform to these steps, because I've taught it many different ways, and I definitely think that this is the easiest method, okay? So look at option 1. Do you see how you have an absolute value and you have an inequality, okay? So step 1, get the absolute value alone. It is. Step number 2, make the inequality an equal sign. So I want you to write it as the absolute value of x equals 3. Step number 3 is like what we did up above, split it into 2. So inside you could have a 3, or inside you could have a -3. We don't have to solve it because it's already done. Those are critical numbers, and we're going to graph them on the number line. So it's just going to be like this, super simple, -3 over here, +3 over here. Okay, when you make your circles, do you see how that symbol right there, you guys, is a less than? So if you have a less than or a greater than, your circle is going to be opened. If you have a less than equal to or a greater than equal to, your circle is going to be closed. Well, we don't have an equal sign, so ours is going to be open, and we're going to be like really clear that it's opened. Okay, and then the only thing you have to remember is where to shade. So I want you to write the word right here, shading. And if it is a less than or a less than equal to, I want you to remember that you shade the inside, okay? If it's a greater than or a greater than equal to, I want you to remember that you shade the outside. And here's how you can remember. If the distance from 0 is supposed to be less than 3 units, that means it would be close to the 0. Anything less than 3 units is going to be like, here's the 0, it's going to be right in here. So the less than just tells you to shade the inside like that, okay? And that's it, okay? That's all we'll do for right there. Actually, you know what? Let's write this in interval form. So your solution would be start from the left, -3, and it does not include it, so it's going to be a parenthesis, and then it goes to a +3, and it does not include it, so it's going to be a parenthesis, okay? So up here where you have your open circle, let's say and parentheses, and this closed circle is going to be and brackets like that, okay? So let's do option 2. Step 1, get it along, done. Step 2, make it an equal sign. So it's going to look like that. Step 3, split it in 2 and drop that absolute value symbol. So it looks like that. The next step is to graph it. So the -3 is going to be over here. The +3 is going to be over here. Open circles because you don't have an equal sign. And now, do you see how greater than means further away from 0, like more than 3 units away from 0, okay? So would that be inside or would it be outside? It would be outside. So you just shade it like that, and that's all you do, okay? So in interval form, it would be from left side, -infinity to -3 with a parenthesis. Now we have another interval. So if you have another interval, you have to put a U like that. Then you pick it back up at a 3, and it's a parenthesis, and it goes to infinity, and that's your interval form, okay? So let's do a couple more. Okay, example A, step 1, get it alone, done. Step 2, make it an equal sign. So it looks like that. Step 3, split it in 2 and drop the absolute value symbol. So it looks like this. The next step is to solve it. So the 5 comes over. So you have 2x equals 8. Divide by 2, x equals 4. Do this one, bring that 5 over, becomes a positive, and you get a 2. Divide, and you get x equals 1. Go to your number line. I know you have a number line down there. I'm going to do mine here. So 1 is there, 4 is there. You do have an equal sign now, so your circle is going to be closed. Make it very clear that it's closed. Greater than means it's greater than 3 units away. So if greater than means far away, so that would be here and here. So interval form would be -infinity, start at the left, go to 1 with a bracket, then put a U, and then pick it back up at a 4 with a bracket to infinity with a parenthesis, and you're done. Sorry if I'm going kind of fast. I'm going to run out of time on my computer, room on my computer. Okay, step 1, move the 5 over. It's going to become a negative. 13 minus 5 is 8. It's still not alone because of the 2, so I'm still on step 1. So you have the absolute value of x minus 7 is less than 8 divided by 2 is 4. This is the step that everyone skips. Do not skip this step, okay? Make the inequality an equal sign. The next step, split it in 2 and drop that absolute value symbol. 7 comes over and becomes a positive and you get a 12. 7 comes over, oops, that should say negative right there. 7 comes over and becomes a positive and you get a 2. Go to your number line. 2 goes here. 12 goes there. I don't have an equal sign, so it's going to be opened and opened. And the place that you look, you guys, to see where, to do inside or outside, see this step right here where the absolute value is alone? That's where you have to look. I'll explain why later. Just know that once it's alone, that's where you analyze it. So less than 4 means close. So it looks like that. So in interval form, it would be 2 with a parenthesis to 12 with a parenthesis. Okay, so that's interval form. On each of those, I was supposed to write it as set builder notation as well. Sorry. So set builder notation, it's not scary. So this is all you do. I'm just going to give you directions. You do a little brace like that. Then you do an X. And then you do a such that. And then inside, you do inequality notation. And then close it off. Okay, so for this one right here, you go like this. You go brace, and then you go X such that. My gosh. Honey, I'm in the middle of a recording right now for my class for tomorrow. Okay, I'll call you back. I love you. My gosh, I'm so sorry. Okay, left-hand side is smaller than 1. So you go X, and then do you see how the shading is to the left? You point to the left, and then there's a 1, and you have a closed circle, so it's an equal sign, okay? And then you put a comma, and then you go X, and it's shaded to the right, and you have an equal sign, and there's a 4, and it looks like that. And this yellow right there is the interval notation, okay? So this one over here, so the interval is 2 to 12, and the set builder looks like this. So you just go brace, and then you go X such that. And if it's in between two numbers like that, it's so simple, guys. You just go 2 is less than X is less than 12. Those symbols always point to the left, always, always, always. And you go smallest to biggest. And the circles are open, so you don't have any equal signs, and that's all you do, okay? All right, so that's that. Okay, let's do this one. So the 7 comes over and becomes a negative. So you have the absolute value of 2 minus 3x is greater than or equal to 5. Okay, it's alone. So now you make it an equal sign. That's a very critical step. Don't skip that step, okay? Now you split it in 2. And you drop the absolute value. So it could be 5 or it could be negative 5. And now you solve it. So negative 3x equals 2 comes over and becomes a negative, and you get a 3. And you get x equals negative 1. Over here you get a negative 3x equals, the 2 comes over and becomes a negative 7. And then you divide by negative 3, and you get a positive 7/3. Okay, go to your number line. Negative 1 over here, 7/3 over there. I do have a closed circle because I have an equal sign. And here's where you look to see it's that greater than right there. So once it's that step, once that is alone, okay? Greater than means far away. So it's going to look like that, okay? Let's do interval form because most of the time that's what you're going to do. So start at the left, and it is negative infinity to -1 with a bracket, and then do a U, and then another bracket, 7/3 to infinity, like that, okay? Then set builder is a brace, X such that you have two regions. Do you see here I have two intervals? You're going to have the same thing here. You're going to have two things. So watch how simple you go. X shaded to the left, -1. I need the equal sign. All you put right there is a comma. Don't put an or, don't put an and, put a comma. And then go X is to the right, greater than or equal to 7/3, close it off, okay? All right, here's question D. I want to see how much more I have. Okay, let's see if I can make it before my recording shuts out. Okay, here's the tricky part. Do you see how this is not alone? And I have to get rid of that -2. Now, you absolutely do not have to write this, and I would almost encourage you to not write it. But if you divide each side by a -2, okay, then you have this, 4x plus 1 over 2. You guys, if you divide by a negative or multiply by a negative, that symbol right there switches the other way. So it looks like that. So a -4 over a -2 is a +2, okay? So I honestly wouldn't even write any of that work. I'd be like, okay, divide by -2, absolute value stays the same, switch it, -4 over -2, +2. So I would do that in my head. So you got it alone. So now let's make it an equal sign. And like I said, don't skip that step because a lot of people do and they get confused. Now I'm going to split it into 2. So it's 4x plus 1 over 2 equals 2, or 4x plus 1 over 2 equals -2. Then cross multiply, and I get 4x plus 1 times 1 is 4x plus 1. 2 times 2 is 4. Move my 1 over. 4x equals 3. Divide by 4, and I get x equals 3/4. Then I do this one. Keep that negative with the 2. 4x plus 1 times 1 is 4x plus 1. 2 times -2 is a -4. Pull your 1 over. 4x equals -5. Divide, x equals -5/4. So the negative goes over there. The positive goes over there. I have no equal sign, so they're opened. Less than, see, that's where I look. And since I switched it, what people do is they'll go greater than, and they go outside, but that's not where you look. You look right there once it's alone. So you actually shade the inside like that, okay? Interval notation would be -5/4 with a parenthesis to a +3/4 with a parenthesis. One interval, one interval. Set builder is a brace, x such that. In between is -5/4 is less than x, is less than 3/4. Close it off, and I'm done. Okay? All right, right here. Again, we're dividing. Okay, so this one's pretty tricky. You're dividing by a negative. Okay, so look what it's going to be. You go the absolute value of x plus 2. The less than is going to be a greater than. And then you have -4 divided by -1/3. So you know a negative over negative is going to be a positive, right? So forget about that. Okay, so I want you to do this on your calculator. So hopefully you have a TI-30XS, okay? So I want you to go 4 divided by. Then I want you to hit the fraction button. And that is top left corner, 1 right, 1, 2 down. Okay, so hit that button. And then I want you to go 1 and then go down 3, hit enter, and you get a 12. Okay, so that's what that's going to be. Okay, I'm so sorry. My family is calling me 1,000 times. Yes, I am recording a lesson for my class. I will call you in a minute, period. I love you and I'm fine. So my family is funny. Okay, so I switched the direction and I did 4 divided by 1/3 and I got a 12. Okay, all right, so now make the inequality an equal sign. Okay, the absolute value was alone, so I was good to do that. Make it an equal sign. Split it into 2. So it looks like that, or it looks like that. Move the 2 over. X equals 10. Move the 2 over. X equals -14. Okay, so I'm going to come right here and I'm going to go -14 is there, 10 is there. I have an equal sign, so my circle's supposed to be closed. Now here's where people mess up. You don't look here. You look at when it's alone. Do you see how the absolute value is alone? That's where you look. Remember, greater than means far away. So that's here and here. So in interval form, 2 intervals. So it's -infinity to -14 with a bracket. You have to have that U. And then a +10 to infinity with a parenthesis. Okay? And then set notation is a brace. And then it's X such that 2 different inequalities. So you're going to go X, point to the left, -14, and you need an equal sign. Remember a comma, and then go X to the right, greater than with an equal sign, and you have a 10 and it's closed off. So the comma and the U are critical. When we're grading your midterms and finals, if you're missing those things, you'll literally lose all the points. So your notation is so important. Okay, name all the ways to write the intervals. So it's basically what we just did over here. So on the left, interval notation is -infinity to -3 with a bracket, and then you have to do the U, and then you pick it up at a 4, and that one's with a parenthesis, and it goes on forever. It's kind of hard to see, but I have arrows at the ends of those. The whole point of this problem is that is one correct way, but another correct way is in place of the U, you can put the word or. Now, I don't want you to do that when you're doing the work regular, but there was a multiple choice question, and it was like something like this, you know, D was something, E was something, or B and D, and it was actually both of these options. So this was correct and this was correct. So just know that those can be used interchangeably, okay? All right, last problem. So again, we have an absolute value and we've got a negative, okay? So it's alone. So the next step would be to write it as an equal sign, right? So it would look like this, but an absolute value is never equal to a negative. It doesn't work. So I know that there's no solution, and I actually don't even have to go that far, because remember, absolute value means distance. So when is a distance going to be smaller than a negative number? A distance is not smaller than a negative number. The smallest distance possible is a 0. So you can tell just by looking at it that the answer is no solution. Okay, I know that was fast and I'm sorry. I just didn't want it to cut me out in the middle of a recording. So what you do now, just so you guys understand, okay, number 1, you go to MathXL and you complete assignment 1. As you complete assignment 1, I think it would be super wise to have 2 pieces of paper on the side of you. One paper is for work. Remember in class how I showed you to take your paper, fold it in half, and then work down, 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 and then down, 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 down. Those problems you have to show work on very nicely and neatly. If you need to jot something down for 1 through 7 or beyond 23, that's great. Just please do not put it on this paper. And I need you to be so clear, you guys. I need you to be like, here's number 8, blah, 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 blah. Highlight my answer. Here's number 9, blah, blah, blah. Highlight my answer, super clear. And then you're going to scan it with a Genius Scan that we talked about in class. And then I'll put that as step 3. And then step 4